Welcome back to segment number 2. I'm Jennifer Fierro, your broad podcaster in the Highland Lakes, joined with my best buddy here, Art Dlugach, and we are going to talk about name, image, and likeness and what SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said about it. So here's in essence what he said. He said that he met with different groups of people in the SEC, student athletes, coaches, administrators, and they all agree that there needs to be some form of uniformity when it comes to name, image, and likeness. And he kept using the word boosters, and this is a direct quote. They want the boosters out of name, image, and likeness. Completely and totally out. What I would say there is, I am not in favor of unsolicited free agency, which is what I believe has been happening with parts of the transfer portal. And I'll give you a great example. When Lincoln Riley took over at USC, there are reports that surfaced that his transfer quarterback, Caleb Williams, who was the starting quarterback at Oklahoma in 2021, had been contacting the top receivers around the country to tell them to come to USC. Okay? I think we heard that from other people as well, talking about players using their phones and making phone calls, right? So, two of those top receivers were Jordan Addison of Pitt and Xavier Worthy at Texas. Now, Texas, of course, if it's going to ever come down to money, that's never going to be a factor in Austin. Okay, so Xavier chose to stay. Jordan Addison, however, chose to transfer, enter the transfer portal, and leave Pitt to go to USC. That is what I mean about unsolicited free agency. That is not what I am in favor of. To me, the name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal are two different entities. I do not see them to be the same. An example of how I think it works well. When Justin Fields, who was the starting quarterback at Georgia, was not going to get a chance to be the starting quarterback in Georgia, he entered the transfer portal and became the starting quarterback at Ohio State.
And the star.
That, to me, is an example of how the transfer portal should work. Now, there are purists out there who will disagree with me on that, and I'm okay with that too. But with Sankey saying they want the boosters out of it, meaning they don't want the boosters involved to tell kids, come to our school and we'll pay you X number of dollars. That's what I think he meant. I don't think he has a problem with kids getting on campus and then being paid name, image, and likeness money once they've signed, and especially if they're part of collectives where they are doing some nonprofit work or charity work where they're getting paid to help make their communities better.
I missed something earlier about maybe it involved Worthy. Are you opposed, or can it be regulated if the right tackle is in his dorm one night, University of Wyoming, and he calls somebody at the University of Colorado, good buddy, they went to high school together, we'll say, and Wyoming tells Colorado, why don't you come to this school, and there are a lot of good NILs. Can that be regulated?
The problem is that's exactly what's happening, and that's what people, that's the question that is in front of people right now.
So you're going to have to tell the kids at the University of Wyoming, at 50 or 60 on the squad, you cannot talk to your buddies and say there's a good NIL opening here, advertising refrigerators, if you will.
The problem right now is that there are no rules. That's why anything and everything can go, and that's the issue for a lot of the student athletes, especially those in Olympic sports that won't get the exposure that football and basketball get. That's the problem.
It seems like that's going to be a tough road for the colleges and the administrators to hoe if they are telling the kids that they can't get on their cell phones and tell another kid to come here.
Right. And officially what the NCAA is saying is that the farther away those conversations happen that do not involve current players and current coaches, the less involved they're going to become. If the NCAA is going to get involved, and right now they are doing everything they can to avoid litigation, which is what NIL will put them in, because in this country, this is my opinion. You cannot tell people that there's a salary cap on how much they can earn when it comes to their name, image, and likeness. There are salary caps in the NFL professional sports on rookie contracts, on lengths of, if a veteran, how long a veteran has been in the league and how much money he can make for his performances. But when it comes to name, image, and likeness, there are no salary caps. And that's part of the issue.
Well, a couple of things about the NIL to remember. It was approved by the Supreme Court, whether you're liberal or conservative, it was a 9-0 vote. So the NIL, as it states, is here to stay. Now, some of these problems Jennifer are mentioning are certainly obstacles to be worried about. I just don't know that you would be on the winning side again if you told somebody who's not a coach, who's not a booster, who's not an administrator, that he or she cannot tell a buddy to come to this school. And I think you can get some money out of the Cadillac agency on Vine Street.
Hey, it's worked very well for my guy. Bijan Robinson talked about his Lamborghini last week at Big 12 Media Days. He drives a pickup 5 days a week, and on the weekend he drives his Lamborghini. Lamborghini that he endorsed and signed with Lamborghini Austin. Okay? So, you know what the UT fan has said, right? Come to Austin, we'll put you in a Lamborghini. Well, how is that for a recruiting pitch?
I think it's a good one. And after Bijan started promoting the Lamborghini, I went out and bought one.
Yeah,
I'm kidding here.
Sure.
I'm kidding.
Well, but let's go back and talk about your guy, Nick Saban. What was his quote yesterday when it came out and he was talking about name, image, and likeness, the collectives, and paying players? Go ahead.
One of my all-time favorite quotes, he said, "I can't answer that. That's above my pay grade." You hear that all the time with people who are making $25,000, $35,000 a year, and Saban is making $10, $12 million more with some of those commercials he does that he does with Deion Sanders. I'll tell you that it just absolutely broke me up. And ESPN followed him, a couple of their commentators, and one of them said the same thing. I've never heard somebody making that much money saying that anybody or any group is above my pay grade.
Well, the reason that I think it's so interesting to do that, okay, and say that is because what Saban talked about the haves and the have-nots when it comes to name, image, and likeness and collectives. And he said that he's part of a school, he's at a school that's a have school, meaning they have the resources in place. What he talked about last week in another podcast that I was listening to that I give him credit for, he said that what the NFL has that's been so valuable is competitive balance. And that's what he loved about college football. NIL now is putting schools and programs in positions where there is and could be an uncompetitive balance, an unbalanced competitiveness, if you will, between the schools that have money and the schools that do not.
One thing I'd like to add, because I'm a Saban fan, is that I've admired him for. He had mentioned that Alabama was a have among the haves, and he thought that was a good thing. And he said, but I thought it was quite interesting that he added, there are plenty of schools out there, I don't know if he used the word plenty, schools out there who are not part of the haves, and this is not good for them.
Right.
So.
Right. And that's why this will be very, very interesting, because we'll get into the death of the Big 12, Pac-12 merger in the next segment here, because we're running out of time. But there's no question, name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal have been changing the way things are done, because right now there are no rules. There's no way to regulate it. There's no way to police it. So what you have is everybody doing their own thing, wanting willing to do their own thing, and everybody's building their own rosters because I believe fans are impatient and coaches need to win now. Most coaches get 3 years, and after 3 years, if they're not winning, then they're going to get bounced out. So those are the realities, folks. As a Texas fan, I will tell you, those are the realities.
I'll just add a couple more things. I know we're running out of time. I will tell you, as someone who has been around a lot longer than you have, as far as age is concerned, winning has always been awfully important to these coaches. But I want to say something that I've said from the beginning of the NIL. I think the schools privately, the colleges, the FBS or the NCAA, whatever you want to call it, I think those schools administrators like it because it at least delays pay for play. That might happen in the future, but right now a lot of money can be had for some of these the star athletes for sure from NIL.
And we know that for a fact because we've talked to enough coaches, college coaches in different sports. None of them have said they don't like it. They all have said they like name, image, and likeness. What I believe they don't like is the unsolicited free agency that they're seeing right now. In some sports, more or less than others. Football is probably the biggest driver. Basketball is number 2 right now. So the Olympic sports, tennis, swimming, golf, help me out here.
Well, lacrosse, soccer.
Yes. Those probably are not going to get the mega deals that you see in name, image, and likeness like you do in football and basketball.
No.
But that's another form of uncompetitive or unbalanced competitiveness because the football team, even on the football team, the quarterback's probably going to make more money than the offensive linemen are. Probably. More than likely. Let's be honest about that. Okay, that's the end of segment number 2. We're going to come back and talk about the Pac-12, Big 12, and the merger that was talked about for 2 weeks that didn't happen. Stay with us. Jennifer Fierro, your broad podcaster here in the Highland Lakes with Art Dlugach, the voice of the Orlando Yellow Jackets. And please make sure you like, subscribe, and share the channel.